Okay. All right. I want to ask you guys a question today. I want us to consider for a moment the dynamics of relationships. That whole area of life that we would call relational. If we take a moment to think about relationships and how we have them and show up in them and how they show up for us and our histories with relationships, our aspirations, our intentions, I think we realize how complicated and layered they are. So I want to talk about one aspect of this today. I want you to take a moment to contemplate the idea of gratitude as a piece of relationship, as part of our relational lives. So obviously there's two parts of this. One part of it is for me to express gratitude to you, to thank you, to let you know that I really appreciate what you've done. And the other part of that is to receive gratitude, to be thanked, to be appreciated, and to have someone share those sentiments with us. So this is my question. It's kind of a complicated one, kind of a deep one, I kind of think, because I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks now. What role does appreciation play in our relationships? What's that? What do you mean by that? She said not enough. Okay, so are you saying that without it we can feel taken for granted? No? Okay. What are you saying? Okay. 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 So I know that those of you out in Cyberland couldn't hear that. That was very complicated. And so basically what Reverend Christine was saying is that there's two parts of this, expressing and receiving. And so maybe they're connected in some way. If I could express more, then maybe I would receive more and, I would receive more. And so, what I'm hearing, the underlying feature to what she's saying is that I would say, the way I interpreted that, and this is going to sound very strange, is that it does relate to intimacy on some level, right? I appreciate you, you appreciate me. It's a reciprocal kind of thing, right? And so, do you think that as human beings, in terms of being healthy, do you think that we need that relationship? Yeah. Okay. Oh wow, that's good. And why do you suppose that is? That gratitude is something as a human as a being that we need to be healthy within ourselves and to have healthy relationships. What are your thoughts about that?
Gratitude makes you happy.
I'm sorry?
It makes you happy.
Oh, it makes us happy. Okay, yeah. I can, someone thanks me for something, I can walk away feeling good. So whatever those endorphins are and stuff, right? Okay, what else? I'm sorry, what, Vicki? I feel seen and heard. And does that mean that you see and hear, right? When you give gratitude, when you get it, I'm seen and heard. When you give it, I am seeing and I am hearing. Again, it's reciprocity, right? Yeah.
Gratitude grows.
In what way?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
Any way you can think of it grows.
Okay. There's an advocate for gratitude growing in all ways, whatever that means. Go ahead.
Gratitude is a way that acknowledges the other as being significant to oneself, as well as the self being significant to it.
Wow. So again, I know you can't hear that out there. So a point of view that if I practice gratitude with another, I'm recognizing their significance to me, their value to me, and then in the other way it comes also. I love that. Yeah.
When I'm grateful, the things for which I'm grateful get bigger and better.
Oh wow. So there's that idea of things growing. And so within relationships, we would say that if I like this relationship, if I value this relationship, then if I'm grateful, it grows, right? Okay. Now, I've been thinking about this because years ago, when I was early in my ministerial journey, and I was about ready to go into the Paradise Center, I attended a conference in New Jersey, and Matthew Fox was there, as he was one of the big draws of the conference. CSL had got him to come to a conference. And I hope you guys have heard of Matthew Fox, amazing writer, amazing intellect, theologian. His ideas are controversial. Some people, resonate with him, some don't. And he came from the Catholic traditions. He moved his way up into Catholic hierarchy, and then he wrote a book about feminine spirituality, and that kind of got him booted out. that didn't go over real good. And so he's gone into the Episcopal world. And so the upshot, I will never forget, in this lifetime, or maybe even a few more lifetimes, he had a profound effect on me with one basic idea that he was talking about. He was talking about the idea that loneliness, which we think of as being psychologically and emotionally, it lives in the world of psychologically and emotionally. He said it also has a place in spirituality, spiritual loneliness. Wow. And I'll tell you why they had a profound effect on me is because I have throughout my life dealt with profound loneliness, and I have had at times really good relationships. I have had at times solid community, healthy community, but yet it was always there. And he said, we have drifted into spiritual loneliness because we lost our relationship with nature, and we lost our relationship with the earth. And so for Matthew Fox, and I know people have all kinds of opinions about this, he talked about the Industrial Revolution, which historically ran roughly between 1750 and 1850. And he said, the industrial relationship took us off the farm, it took us out of the countryside, and brought us into cities. And it took us away from being in families and communities who worked together to plant, to raise crops, to harvest, to build barns, to take care of each other, to mend the fences, to heal the horses, to educate the children, to come together. And we came into tenement buildings, and we came into houses, and we came into factories, and we came into isolation. And he said that translated into spiritual isolation. Now, I know that sounds really dualistic, but Matthew Fox, whose philosophies are very grounded with what we teach, said, it's not that we lost spirit, it's that it felt like we lost spirit, the spirit of nature. And so what Matthew Fox was taking on in a bigger way, he felt that historically, and I know that history's got all kinds of nooks and crannies and time periods and all kinds of things going on in history, and I always struggle with isolating one particular time in history. But he felt that duality, which is something that has torn us apart religiously, started during that time. Because he said, instead of being able to find a connection with spirit within our lives every day, that field that was out there, that river that was out there, the land, the horses, the cattle, the deer, the elk, the birds, the insects, that we were involved in every day. And those lessons, those teachings, came and settled within us in a place where we felt spirit, we put our hands in spirit, we harvested spirit, we planted spirit, we experienced it in the weather and the seasons to a degree that we don't today. He said suddenly all of that was turned over to the priest and the minister and the church and the temple, which de facto are not bad places, but that's all we had. And he said that there's this idea that we lost, that we had a breakdown in that relationship. And so my experience with this, besides Matthew Fox speaking to that part of me that had that intense loneliness, is that I'm going to share with you a slang term I don't think any of you know, because maybe some of you know it, but a lot of you don't know this because you don't live in the world that I work in. There's a slang term called a 911 God. You ever heard that? What's that mean? Yes, only when I'm desperate. And then all of a sudden I'm looking for God, right? And I can't tell you how many clients I've had over the years. So my job as a counselor in that field is to, I do weekly check-ins with people. How are you doing? How's the sobriety? How's the recovery? Is your life making progress? And so my job is to hit certain places. How are you feeling emotionally? How are you doing? How's your job going? How's your relationship with your family going? How are your finances, your resources? How's the sobriety going? All those kinds of things, socially and everything. And then I have to hit on I don't have to, but I do have to, but I like doing it. I hit on the spiritual. And so the spiritual part of it is, I'll say something like, because, as you guys probably all know, the recovery world is big on the higher power of my understanding. And so I don't engage with them in terms of what their God is or spirit. I just want, how's that going? How's that going? And a lot of times I hear this very often, well, it's not going so good. Well, why do you think that is? Because, Andy, my relationship with God is still like 911. Well, why do you think it's still like 911? So now suddenly we've gone from, I've got this higher power that I guess I can turn to when my rear end is in a vice, right? Or, God is a vending machine. I go put in my quarter and will you get me out of this? And somehow we've gone from that to relationship. Isn't that interesting? Why do you suppose as human beings we are drawn to a construct of God that is relational? Now, as you contemplate that, think a little bit about Matthew Fox's thesis around this. In other words, if what he was saying within this big workshop he did for half a day with us was, he was basically saying, our ancestors' relationship with God, maybe they went to church on Sunday or whatever, but their relationship was when it's planting season, it's time to till up the soil. Okay, winter's over with, we got to get going. We got to get the seeds in there, got to get the horses and the plows out there. They got mud up to their knees and everything, and that was, what were they doing? They were engaging spirit. They were engaging the seasons. They had to watch what was going on. It was interplay. It was us and spirit. And so there is this, Charles Fillmore, who you guys know, I quote him a lot. He's a very academic guy from, New Thought and going way back. He was co-founder of Unity. And most of his stuff is really academic and thick, but there's a quote of his that's kind of playful in nature, and I love this quote. He says, "Be grateful to Spirit and thankful for all the friends whom it uses to supply each of us." I love that. Who are Spirit's friends? The weather? The climate? The geography? The rivers? The water? The seeds? Yeah, all of it. It's all friends of Spirit. Just like we can be friends of Spirit. If we have a tragedy, if we have something that we feel like is a tragedy in our life, a loss in our life, a trauma in our life, and all of a sudden we have, let's say, spiritual community like this, and people show up, "Oh, Andy, I'll help you through this. How are you doing? We'll get this together. We'll help you through this." All of a sudden I've got all these little friends of Spirit. They're all coming out, and they're all showing up. And they print things, and they make things, and they do phone calls, and they go on social media, and they do all this stuff, right? The friends of Spirit. What Matthew Fox, I think, was also going into was something I want to share with you. Wow, I talk too much. I remember as a young child, and I know this was before the age of 10 because 10 is one of those benchmarks in my life. And as a kid, I kind of look at pre-10, after 10. That's kind of like my little thing. This was before 10. And I was attending, with my family, I was attending a Christian church, and so we'd go all the time. And so every once in a while, we'd have a missionary come speak to us, right? And somebody that the church was supporting out there in the field trying to convert the world and stuff. So it was always kind of exciting. Somebody came from some exotic place. And so this one missionary, and I remember, you know, I remember I have impressions of what they presented. And so basically what they would do is they would talk about the people that they were, you know, that they were ministering to, and they always loved to talk about how superstitious they were, and they had to be superstitious because they didn't really know the real God, and so they would give you examples of that. Oh, I can't believe how superstitious these people are. So this gentleman had been ministering to some of the more rural areas of Western Canada with indigenous people on the Pacific Northwest coast, and at that time, you know, so this was in the 60s before I was 10, and you know, and so that was, you know, there was no talk about what the Indian schools did and what the poverty did and what the loss of jobs did and what making their spiritual practices illegal did and all that stuff. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So he was talking about how superstitious they were because he went there, and these idol worshipers had created salmon on everything. They carved salmon. They painted salmon. They had images of salmon everywhere. And so he said, I was talking to this older woman. She'd been in the tribe for a long time. And I said, why in the world are you worshiping salmon? And she said, well, we're not worshiping salmon, but salmon feeds the earth. And he said, can you believe how superstitious that is? Salmon feeds the earth. Because you know, yeah, salmon feeds you and the bears, but I don't, you know, I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't really think it feeds the earth, right? It's interesting because about 2 years ago, or no, sooner than that, because I did a talk in here about the Klamath River. I got all up into salmon for a while, so I'm watching all these documentaries on salmon, right? So YouTube is feeding me these documentaries. And I see a documentary about the Pacific Northwest, its relationship with salmon. So I watched it. Okay, so let's talk about the salmon. They go out into the ocean. They're out there for several years, and they retain all kinds of nutrients that only the ocean can give them. And those nutrients are just amazing in terms of growing things. And so if you're 100 miles inland, like a redwood forest, or you know, a cedar forest or whatever, you don't necessarily get those nutrients. Okay. So then, you know, once or twice a year, there's a salmon run that comes up hundreds of miles. They deposit their eggs, and then they pass away. And as their bodies break down in the streams, the watershed and all that rain, all those nutrients begin to go out into the wilderness. And when the bears eat them, they take the carcasses out there and flop them around all over the place. And as they deteriorate, and they say, this is what has made that region one of the richest in the world in terms of trees. Turns out the older lady was right. There was a reason why they put salmon on everything. Because those people without their formal educations, they knew that the salmon fed the earth. In terms of relationships, do you suppose that our relationship with Spirit is any different than it is between us? In other words, is there reciprocity? Is there an intimacy? Is that what I've been lonely for? Is that what I was cut off from? Is that what Matthew Fox is saying? Because we're not putting our hands in the earth anymore? I want to read something, and I'd like to end with this today. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Stephen Mitchell. He's done some amazing work around the Tao Te Ching, and also he likes to write on the Psalms a lot. He's an amazing writer. And so he took Psalms 111, and he starts his piece with an interpretation of that, then goes into a reading of sorts. And so Stephen Mitchell tells us, I thank Spirit with all my being for the resources bestowed on our earthly journey. Uncountable are these resources and realizations. Immeasurable its love. Its love, which includes the cycles of physical support, clouds, lakes, rivers, glaciers, and oceans of abundance. The cycles of personal awareness, feelings in cognition, an abundance of consciousness. Through body, breath, and beliefs. The stuff of a vibrant life. Running through all of vibrant life. That's our connection. That's our connection to spirit. And then if you don't mind, I want to end with a piece. Take me just a second. This was written to the earth. What exactly fell apart when we left the land that we loved and loved us? We appreciated you. Did you appreciate us? Did we know how to communicate? And did you know how to communicate to us? Was that what all the dances were for? All the drumming, all the ancient songs? Is that why we named mountains, valleys, rivers, creeks, meadows, and small nooks and crannies in your land? Did those places know the names given to them? Did all those places, those details that Spirit revealed, the spirits of those places, appreciate the special attention? Was it in honoring? And so what I'd like to leave you with today is this idea that while we are one, to practice true unity within that oneness has to come through appreciation, gratitude, and thanksgiving so that we can establish this relationship and not have a 911 God. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.